Thank you for joining us today. I'm Anne-Marie Vunier, the World Vision UN representative in Geneva, and the co-coordinator of the working group on children and violence of Child Rights Connect network. I'm honored to be your moderator today for this important event. But before we begin, I would really like to extend our heartfelt thanks to the co-sponsors of this meeting. So we have the Mission of Colombia, the SRSG-VAC on violence against children, and the World Health Organization. We are gathered to launch a publication, on effective country measure to end violence against children. You can find some copies at the entrance. And we know that ending violence against children is not just a moral imperative or something good to do, but it's also a fundamental necessity for the well-being and future of our society. Unfortunately, the reality is stark. Globally, up to 1 billion children aged 2 to 17 years old have experienced physical, sexual, and emotional violence or neglect in the past. However, there is hope. Evidence from around the world show that violence against children can be prevented. And we are at a pivotal moment with the ministerial conference happening in November in Bogota, and also we know what works. We have effective measures. This publication is one of the means that we have that shows what works, but we also have the Inspire. We have so many different tools that we can use. So now it's how to implement them. And there it's the importance to be all here today, and we're really so happy to have so many states with us, because we know it's so important that states really commit and implement the different measures. So we will start the meeting with our panelist keynote speakers that are here. And then we will have also the presentation of the effective measures publication. And we'll have a panel discussion with the case studies, with the different countries from the case studies. We're so happy that so many could join to explain what works, and also maybe what was maybe some gaps, what doesn't work, and ways to go forward on ending violence against children. And we will then close with WHO and having also some forward thinking about the ministerial conference, and unfortunately just a small bit of a child, but they should always be part of the discussions. That's really so important. So we have a very packed agenda. We'll try to keep to the timing. I hope I won't be too harsh with the speakers, but we'll try to keep to the 3 minutes that is allocated. So it's my distinct honor to introduce first our esteemed speaker, His Excellency Mr. Gustavo Galón, Ambassador Extraordinary and Plenipotentiary of the Government of Colombia. Colombia has been at the forefront of initiatives to protect and promote children's rights. The organization of this ministerial conference on violence against children is a testament to Colombia's commitment to addressing the critical issues and fostering international cooperation to create a safe environment for children. Your Excellency, the floor is yours.
Thank you very much, Mrs. Anne-Marie Vunier, representative of World Vision, distinguished representatives from the permanent missions of Indonesia, Montenegro, Paraguay, Sierra Leone, Sweden, and Zambia, and all the other countries present in this room, esteemed leaders and advocates for children, including Ms. Najat Maala Mjid, the UN Secretary General's Special Representative on Ending Violence Against Children, and Mrs. Sabine Rakoto Mala from the Department of Social Determinants of Health at the WHO, who is going to come soon, I understand. Esteemed delegates, members of civil society, and all attendees. It is with great honor that I stand before you today at the launch of this important publication commissioned by the Working Group on Children and Violence. This publication underscores the urgent need for global action to eradicate violence against our children, highlighting successful strategies worldwide and emphasizing the essential role of collaborative efforts involving multiple stakeholders. Colombia is honored to be featured as a case study in this publication. It serves as a vivid example of our unwavering commitment to protecting children from the scourge of violence. We recognize that combating violence against children requires a unified front across all sectors of society. Through initiatives such as the National Alliance to End Violence Against Children, we have fostered partnerships among governmental bodies, civil society organizations, and international allies, united in our collective mission to safeguard our children. As part of these efforts, in 2022, Colombia adopted the National Pedagogical and Prevention Strategy against corporal punishment and cruel, humiliating, or degrading treatment of children and adolescents, 2022-2030. This strategy articulates promotion and prevention actions designed to transform sociocultural beliefs and behaviors, promote nurturing care and education, democratic relations, respectful parenting, and giving importance to the voices of children. Colombia also highly values international cooperation and actively collaborates with global partners to share best practices in the fight against violence targeting children. The upcoming first Global Ministerial Conference on Violence Against Children, scheduled for November 7 and 8 in Bogota, not only reflects our dedication to this cause, but also signifies our commitment to this crucial issue on a global scale. With just 2 months until the Ministerial Conference, we are eager to seize this opportunity to accelerate progress towards ending violence against children worldwide. Co-hosted with Sweden and organized in collaboration with WHO, UNICEF, and the UN Secretary General's Special Representative on Violence Against Children, this ministerial conference marks a pivotal moment in the global protection of children's rights. This first global ministerial conference holds immense potential to be a transformative milestone in our shared mission to combat this pressing issue and accelerate the implementation of Sustainable Development Goal 16.2, which is striving to end abuse, exploitation, trafficking, and all forms of violence and torture against children. Together, let us seize this opportunity to create a world where every child thrives free from violence. Thank you.
Thank you, Your Excellency. I now give the floor to my colleague and co-convener of the Working Group on Violence and Children, Maria Lucia Uribe from Arigato International, who will present the publication we are launching today.
Thank you. Good afternoon, everyone. Your Excellency, Ambassador Gajon, Dr. Najat Malamajid, Excellencies, representatives from civil society organizations, UN agencies, colleagues. It is a pleasure to present to you this very timely publication on effective measures to end violence against children and the role of the human rights mechanisms as we prepare for the first global ministerial conference on the topic and as part of building momentum to accelerate action. This publication was commissioned by the Working Group on Children and Violence of Child Rights Connect, following up an analysis conducted in 2021 on how violence against children has been addressed through the Human Rights Council resolutions, the concluding observations of the Committee on the Rights of the Child, and recommendations provided through the Universal Periodic Review to 47 countries. This analysis found out that although progress to prevent and address violence against children has been made as a result of advocacy to and from UN human rights mechanisms, stronger alignment, smart recommendations, stronger accountability, and work are still needed to accelerate actions at the national level. This publication was developed in collaboration with the different members of the working group and with inputs from the Office of the SRSG on Violence Against Children and WHO. Special thanks to all of them. The publication, the slides, please. The publication that we are presenting today is part of an effort to showcase examples of states that are successfully implementing EVAC measures, with the purpose to inspire other states to prioritize and take concrete actions to end violence against children. Very often, efforts are focused on pointing to what states are not doing and what does not work. And we believe it is critical to highlight good practices. What measures have states taken to accelerate actions to address violence against children, and point to recommendations on how comprehensive measures can work together and contribute to children's protection from violence. We also hope that this publication and its recommendations in particular can support UN human rights mechanisms in their efforts to provide more concrete, measurable, achievable, and relevant recommendations to states that can contribute to better prioritization and actions to end violence against children. And last but not least, support civil society to conduct strategic advocacy work to encourage states to use recommendations by UN human rights mechanisms and hold states accountable. Next one. An important premise in the development of this publication is that human rights mechanisms are critical to accelerate action to end violence against children. In particular, the role that the Committee on the Rights of the Child and the UPR play and should play to prompt states to take measurable and achievable actions that can influence national legislations, policies, budgets, and programs to increase the protection of children. This is extremely important, as we know that the formulation of recommendations provided by UN human rights mechanisms relating to violence against children that do not make reference to specific types of violence or state which children are most at risk are not helpful in guiding states to take specific actions needed to target particular issues or groups, nor they do provide clear guidance to civil society organizations to keep governments accountable. Other UN treaty bodies, as well as special procedures and the Human Rights Council through its resolutions, also play an important role. But very often, these work in silos. Children's issues are collated into other issues pertaining women, for instance, and there is little collaboration and exchange of information between different treaty bodies and procedures. We can do better to ensure that children's agenda is at the core of the discussions and recommendations, but also that violence against children is addressed effectively, coherently, and clearly. The 2030 Agenda for Sustainable Development also provides a critical avenue to review progress on commitments made under the several goals and targets through the voluntary national reviews. We know that ending violence against children can contribute to the achievement of several of the goals and targets, particularly in this crucial moment now where only 17% of the SDG targets are on track. Children's well-being and their protection from violence is a cross-sector agenda and requires cross-sectoral and multi-stakeholder collaborations. And last but not least, national human rights institutions are also part of these efforts to advance ending violence against children and can serve as a catalyst to support the protection of children's rights by helping to monitor the fulfillment of the state child rights obligations. This publication showcases 7 country case studies that were identified by an analysis of their commitments, policies, actions, and progress made to end violence against children at the national level. We analyzed around 60 countries, many of them initial pathfinding countries of the former Global Partnership to End Violence Against Children, by looking at actions taken by these countries based on recommendations provided through the Committee on the Rights of the Child and UPR, as well as their commitments and progress made. These 7 country case studies show concrete efforts made by states to prioritize effective measures to end violence against children, but also demonstrate that measures do not work in isolation, but they are mutually reinforcing and necessarily complementary to accelerate countries' abilities to adopt evidence-based EVAC interventions. We are grateful that the ambassadors and representatives of these 7 countries are present here today. This publication identifies 12 effective measures clustered in 4 areas. Those are commitment, leadership, and authority to act, sufficient knowledge and resources, a multi-stakeholder approach, and international cooperation and accountability. The publication provides a description of each of the measures together with guidance for states. These are measures that are necessary for countries to accelerate action to end violence against children. They are not strategies to end violence against children. These are not trying to replace INSPIRE or other evidence-based strategies. These are measures that need to be taken by states to ensure that sustainable progress is made to prevent and respond to violence against children by developing a systematic and holistic approach that supports the creation of a functional national child protection system, which, by following the CRC principles and articles, can provide a clear path and a roadmap towards eliminating violence against children. The publication states that when these measures together are not prioritized, even states which make individual efforts often end up with a compartmentalized approach to ending violence against children and are less likely to mobilize all vital actors within the government, in civil society, and in communities, which of course is a key aspect to accelerate action. We know that ending violence takes time and requires a sustained commitment to implementing measures over the long term. And for this, we need an integrated, comprehensive, and systemic approach. The case studies in the publication reflect the efforts of governments to prioritize these measures in a comprehensive manner. We see the efforts of Paraguay, for instance, ensuring a strong political will and leadership at the highest levels, including ministerial authorities and the executive branch, with the creation of the Ministry of Children and Adolescents and departmental and municipal councils on children and adolescents, combined with a strong data collection and multi-stakeholder collaboration. We also see the case of Colombia, that has developed a comprehensive national plan to end violence against children, disseminated in subnational action plans, accompanied by a multi-sectoral strategic approach, as mentioned by Ambassador Gallón, and monitoring and evaluation processes led by the National Institute for Child Welfare. Similarly, Indonesia, in its National Long-Term Development Plan, has made long-term commitments to strengthen child participation. A 20-year plan is impressive, and has enacted a special allocation fund to supplement local government budgets to increase child protection, addressing the limitations and the ability of the local governments to protect children from violence. Montenegro's government has prioritized strengthening the capacity of professionals who provide support to children, including centers of social work, police, courts, prosecution offices, teachers, and healthcare workers. All these accompanied by strong international cooperation and accountability, among many other measures. Zambia has a strong example of involvement of children, one of the other measures mentioned, formalized in the Child Participation Framework that was launched in 2023 to advance child participation and fulfillment of their rights. And children, and this is important, are recognized as equal partners in technical working groups on child safeguarding and child participation. Zambia has also demonstrated a strong commitment to engage religious and traditional leaders to address gender-based violence and conflicts between customary law and the Constitution. Sweden is also a good example of awareness raising and public engagement on issues pertaining to violence against children, reaching out to medical offices and child care centers across the country, translating materials into all immigrant languages and integrating it into school curriculum and parenting classes. With a strong collaboration with CSOs, Sweden has influenced over the years public awareness to challenge violence against children. And last but not least, we see the political leadership of Sierra Leone from the highest level with public engagement and international cooperation and leadership, particularly to end child sexual exploitation, abuse, and violence, and a strong political legislation in the last years on issues of sexual violence, child marriage, promotion of inclusive education, banning discrimination in schools, legalizing youth advisory groups, and prohibiting corporal punishment in schools. These country case studies do not aim to present a perfect picture or a pink picture of what governments are doing. For sure, more efforts need to be made at several levels in these countries to accelerate action. And there are pockets of violence against children as well as challenges, which some are mentioned in the publication. But the commitment to address recommendations from human rights mechanisms, the concrete and strategic actions that have been prioritized, and the determination of these governments are a clear path towards the development of effective child protection systems to end violence against children and make them a good example to showcase. So last, the publication also has 10 very concrete recommendations, and I'm not going to go into details on the recommendations, but I'm just going to mention them. The first is appropriate legislation that complies with international and human rights instruments, and that is inclusive of every child in the country. The second is national child rights policy and EVA action plans that are comprehensive and inclusive of policies, strategies, and concrete actions with a focus on the most vulnerable. The third is disaggregated data that can allow to make decisions and address the most marginalized children. Fourth, next, is sufficient budget allocations and tracking of spending with specific indicators and accountability systems. And as you see, these measures are similar to how we selected these best practices. These are things that some governments are already doing. The fifth is capacity strengthening of governments and non-government staff across all sectors. Six is the involvement of children in decision-making processes, engagement in Human Rights Council sessions and other spaces, and ensuring that they have access to child-friendly information. Seven, awareness raising and public education, prioritizing collaboration with media, civil societies, children, and religious and traditional leaders. For eight, multi-stakeholder collaboration between relevant government departments and non-government agencies. And of particular importance is the appointment of a senior government focal point to establish coordination between different agencies. Ninth, international cooperation and bilateral regional partnerships, including through technical assistance, as well as withdrawal of declarations and reservations made to the CRC. And last, is international accountability, and here of particular importance is reporting during the voluntary national reviews of the SDGs. So dear friends, we know that violence, next, is preventable, it can be effectively addressed, and it can be eliminated, and we know what works. And we also know that by prioritizing these measures, we can accelerate action and pave the way towards ending violence against children. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Maria. You can find this publication here and also on the website of Child Rights Connect. So now we are really fortunate to have Dr. Najat Malamjid, the Special Representative of the Secretary General on Violence Against Children, and really a tireless advocate for the protection and promotion of children's rights globally. She plays a crucial role on working with states to prevent and eliminate all forms of violence against children, and also leads the global workstream on pathfinding countries to end violence against children. The floor is yours.
Thank you, Excellencies, dear friends, dear colleagues. I will be very short because I have many faces who are here, and we were during 2 days very strongly involved discussing the same issue. So I will just highlight, I have many questions that are practical. This year we are commemorating the 15th anniversary of the establishment of the Office of the Special Representative on Violence Against Children. 18 years ago, the global study, the UN study on violence against children was published. The recommendations that were made at this time are still relevant today. And after we have many commitments, Agenda 2030, to make sure that not only SDG 16.2, but all the SDGs are interlinked and are impacting. We had the global study also on children deprived of liberty. That also. So my question is, yes, we have many commitments. We have many things. The question is, we need to know and to really to speak out of the box and to tell why we are not achieving. The number of plans, the number of commitments, the number of action is huge. We know that despite all this, and we were discussing this during 2 days, many things are going on. So the issue is, could we have a kind of map of all the actions that are very well done and to bring them together? And we need to switch, really speaking about concept, because even child protection system, when you are asking 1, 2, 3 people, we have not the same understanding. How we translate it into what are these concrete services that need to be standardized and deliver where children are living. This is very important. We need to switch from this top to down and going to bottom up. The other issue that it's important is really to see that investing in child protection and well-being is key for development. Is not only, responding to this, it's really important. The other point that I think, and we know that it has a huge cost. We already have the economic cost. It's up to 10.96% of the national GDP. It's, in some countries, 6 times the annual budget of the Ministry of Health. So I think it's really, we know the cost, we know the human cost, and we need to stop seeing children as a problem to resolve, but really as an asset to invest on. This is very important. And we're speaking a lot about political commitment. I think it's it's good to have political commitment, but how we translate it? This is one question. And my priority here, and it's only my big message, is how we strengthen the local and national systems to make them sustainable and to make sure that they are seen as an investment. We are currently assessing the return on investment. This is very important to make sure that independently of the change of government, the institutions are strong and deliver. And last but not least, children have to be on board as part of the solution, because because to be very frank, they know very well what is working, what is not working. And to have them on board, it's really important. And I want to come back to cooperation, multilateralism, and international, I think we need to switch from donor-driven approach to make sure that what is important is to make sure how we are strengthening, the system. And last but not the least, what is going on worldwide. Because the problem, yes, it's multi-stakeholders cooperation, but also it's shared accountability. And sorry, I just know that previously, before we came, it was about violence and school and attacks on school. It's about also to be accountable, all of us, and to have this international accountability. This is very, very, very important. And my last point is really how we can, and you highlighted, Maria, regarding, how also as UN, as civil society, as countries, to not be in competitive priority, but to make sure that we are working through a life cycle approach and strengthening the environment. It's not opposing children to women or children to others. It's really how we are building this safe, inclusive, healthy environment with and for children. And just to come back to that, we know already what to do. We have wonderful examples. The number of examples within the countries and worldwide are huge. So the question is just sit together and really start implementing it and telling this is a cost to do it, but not only the economic cost, we need to have strong social workforce, and all the personnel and all the staff who is working directly with children really need to be duly staffed and duly empowered. So my last point, it will be, yes, we can make it, and I hope in Bogota, it will be a strong moment to keep the momentum, but it has not to be an end. It has not to be a show. It has to be really commitment that we are going to translate into concrete action and to be accountable on. And thank you so much.
Thank you, Dr. Najat. And I think what we will really, one thing I really love that to say that we should not see children as a problem to resolve, but as an asset to invest in. And I think that's really central. I like that very much. So now we will move to a second part of our panel. So we will invite to the floor the distinguished delegates from Indonesia, Montenegro, Paraguay, Sierra Leone, Zambia, and Colombia. And also, thank you. And also Brikena and Zogaj and Sabine Rakotomano. Yeah, I don't know if it exists. I realize time is very short and I'm really sorry about that. So maybe I can she put the slides. Yes. Great. So we will start with Mrs. Carolina Solano from Colombia. The floor is yours. Thank you. Ah, from Paraguay, sorry. Carolina Solano, sorry.
Yes. Thank you. And thank you all for everybody who is joining us today. As our ambassador, His Excellency Gustavo Gajon has already mentioned, our government has an unwavering commitment to protecting children from the scourge of violence. We recognize that combating violence against children requires a unified front across all sectors of society, and it is the road towards closing gaps in education, nutrition, and health, and promoting what we are calling the next generation of peace. In 2018, in response to the recommendations of the Committee of the Rights of the Child, we conducted the Violence Against Children and Youth Survey, which provided detailed information to inform targeted actions to prevent and respond to violence against children. One of the main elements of the survey was the participation of a selected team of skilled interviewers, native to the region and familiar with the culture, tasked with building trust and listening carefully to children who shared their experience in the survey. With the information obtained, our country developed a multi-sectoral strategic approach and a multi-sectoral collaboration between representatives from different agencies of the government, civil society and academic organizations, and international agencies aimed at ensuring the consolidation of protecting spaces for children at home, in public institutions, and in digital spaces. Furthermore, after becoming a pathfinding country in 2019, we adopted the INSPIRE model to prevent violence against children through our National Plan of Action to End Violence Against Children and Adolescents. This national action plan has been disseminated in 32 sub-national action plans, and as of 2022, almost half of Colombia's departments had approved their plans, and 17 were in the process of approving them. Today, this number is much higher. These strategies were complemented by the National Pedagogical and Prevention Strategy against corporal punishment and cruel, humiliating, or degrading treatment of children and adolescents, mentioned already by our ambassador, as well as the prohibition of corporal punishment of children and the national campaign led by an alliance with civil society organizations, and that was made up of more than 700 international and national groups, networks, and allies. For all of these, Colombia has also created a system to monitor the implementation of the National Action Plan and other strategies. This is aimed at measuring violence against children using output and outcome indicators in the short, medium, and long term, presenting the findings in an annual report. With this, we hope to combat what is one of the most egregious forms of violence, as is violence of children and youth in our country. We hope that this publication, as well as the best practices found therein, such as the Colombian experience, can help other countries in their own policymaking. We are confident that together we can create a better world for the next generation of peace. Thank you.
Thank you very much for those very good practices. And I will give the floor now to His Excellency Febrian Rudyard from Indonesia. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Moderator, Excellency, colleagues. Allow me to join other speakers to congratulate Child Rights Connect Working Group on Children and Violence for the official launching of this important publication. And we are pleased to be one of the countries, and the only one, I believe, from our region in Asia Pacific that has been selected by the working group to showcase our good practices and to end violence against children in our country. Our commitment to eliminate violence against children is unwavering. We are state party to the Convention of the Rights of the Children since 1990. We have law on child protection since 2002, which was later revised in 2014. And we have adopted national strategy for the elimination of violence against children in 2022. The government is also strengthened by the National Human Rights Institution, including Indonesia Child Protection Commission. Let me take this opportunity to highlight 3 critical measures in our national effort to end violence against children. First, robust data collection system. Strong database is critical to identify and address cases of violence against children in a more effective manner. Our government has developed online information system for women and children protections, which provide a real-time data on the reported cases of women and children violence nationwide. It is accessible to all service units across the country that manage victims of the violence against women and children. Our ultimate goal is to create one violence national data. Second, special budget allocation. The aim is to strengthen prevention and protection services from violence for women and children in all regions of Indonesia. It includes, among others, experts and legal assistance, safe house, health and rehabilitation for victims. And this year, about $8.5 million has been distributed to more than 300 local government at the provincial district level. And this special budget will be doubled next year. And third, strengthen health sector. We recognize the vital contribution of health sector in handling cases of violence against children. It comprehensively covers promotion, prevention, early detection, curative, and rehabilitative measures. Equally important, the government also provides a comprehensive age-appropriate reproductive health education within the educational institution to raise awareness of this issue. Excellency, colleagues, we are aware that challenges remain in substantially suppressing cases of violence against children in our country. However, we are still firm in our commitment to continue and enhance our efforts to overcome this issue. Multi-stakeholder approach is surely needed, including by engaging children as the main subject of this issue and the policy making and implementation. What we are doing now is for all the children, because the children is the one who became the target of our all discussion within the multilateral forum. To conclude, allow me to share with you a quotation. I believe the children are our future. George Benson, 1977. Thank you.
Thank you very much for this time from the state. And I now give the floor to Her Excellency Mrs. Slavica Milacic from Montenegro. Okay, you have the floor.
Thank you very much. Excellencies, dear colleagues, it's my distinct pleasure and honor to participate in today's event to mark the launch of the publication of effective country measures to end violence against children. This is especially so as Montenegro is among the countries selected in the publication as a positive example and success story of pathfinding countries. Much has been achieved, but we are very much aware of the challenges ahead us and still long road along us. We, as a country with first-hand experience, We trust that the publication will serve as a comprehensive guide to the country for prioritizing child protections, implementing evidence-based strategies, and collaborating internationally to eliminate violence against children, as well as a call to action for robust international cooperation, accountability, and multi-stakeholders collaboration. As Madam Special Representative already pointed out, there was a lot of commitment and recommitment, including those to keep our promises to end all forms of violence by 2030, but still we are lagging behind in achieving this goal. So it's time to translate our commitment to concrete action. From a national perspective, let me briefly refer to just a few of our achievements and challenges as they are detailed in the publication. From a national observance of human and children's rights remains a priority and essential part of Montenegro's European agenda. To ensure that children's rights and needs are observed and protected by the UN Convention on the Rights of the Children and other key human rights mechanisms, and to align our policies and practices with internationally recognized standards, Montenegro has continued to reform and strengthen its institutional, legislative, administrative, and strategic capacity. In 2016, with the amendments to the family law, Montenegro prohibited corporal punishment in all settings, which was an important step forward in tackling violence against children in our society. On strategic and policy level, from 2017 to 2021, Montenegro, among others, developed and implemented a strategy for the prevention and protection of children against violence and its action plan, identifying efficient activities to overcome shortcomings and reduce rates of child abuse and neglect. Among instances in point is the also Parenting for Lifelong Health program implemented by health centers, kindergartens, and NGOs to help enhance parenting skills. In all actions, we prioritize a multidisciplinary and multi-sectoral approach, which we believe is fundamental in developing of children's rights policies and systems. As for the ongoing activities, we are engaged in drafting a new strategy for the prevention and protection for children from violence, 2025-2028. The emphasis will be given to the further prevention of peer violence, safe use of the internet, promotion of non-violent disciplining of children, and the establishment of a national children's house for child victims of severe form of violence, as well as on additional strengthening of administrative and professional capacity in all the departments involved in the protection of children from violence. Furthermore, the work on the deinstitutionalization strategy 2024-2028 is also in the pipeline. The government is also putting considerable efforts in continuing capacity building, development by conducting specialized training for professionals in areas of social protection, health system, police, prosecutor's office, and judiciary. We also keep focus on public awareness campaigns on violence against children. Last but not least, I'm really proud that today with us are also the distinguished representatives of the Minister of Interior of Montenegro, Ms. Snežana Vujović, head of the Minister's office, and Mr. Radovan Stijović, senior police inspector, as well as that they are attending the ongoing workshop, as already Madam Special Representative has points to, while the Minister, Šćekić, Minister of Sports and Youth of Montenegro, will attend the forthcoming ministerial conference in Bogota. Finally, once again, let me say we achieved a lot, but we are very much aware that there is still a significant growth ahead of us, but we remain committed to continue to cooperate closely with human rights mechanism and all relevant domestic and international stakeholders in achieving these objectives and advancing each and every aspect of children's rights. I thank you for your attention.
Thank you very much, Your Excellency. And now to give the floor to Her Excellency, Mrs. Ana Candia from Paraguay.
Thank you very much. Because the constrained time, I will go straight to the point, okay? Thank you. Okay. So, ladies and gentlemen, in such a complex and multifaceted scenario, to take effective and sustainable action to end violence against children, we need to rely on not only on a strong legal framework, national policies, and sufficient budget allocation, but also on a multi-sectoral collaboration that also integrates voices of the child by participating in the decision-making processes related to their protection and well-being. In the case of Paraguay, although many challenges persist, particularly in the area of allocating human, technical, and financial resources, such as of the promptly investigation and persecution in cases of violence and abuses against children. We still have made a lot of progress in this matter. Paraguay has notably strengthened its legal framework, formulated constitutional norms, ratified international human rights instruments, enacted laws, formulated and implemented public policies in the field of prevention and fight against violence to children and adolescents. Statistical data of violation of rights recorded by the state bodies in recent years have been decisive in further engaging political actors, administrative and judicial authorities, and civil society in increasing efforts to promote the culture of respect for children's human rights so that they can enjoy a full life free of violence. Sensitivity generated both in authorities and in society has created awareness regarding the need to change cultural patterns to eradicate violence and to position children as rights holders. Paraguay also makes determined efforts to prioritize investment in children and adolescents, placing them at the center of its public policies and works to guarantee a safe environment through. In order to continue improving the addressing of this issue, my country is committed to continuing strengthening data collection mechanisms that can help to develop policies, allocate resources, implement programs, and measure outcomes. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Your Excellency. And we now give the floor to His Excellency Lansana Gberi from Sierra Leone. The floor is yours.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Excellencies, distinguished delegates, colleagues, it is an honor to be here with you at the launch of this really excellent report. And I noticed that I'm extremely gratified that we are featured as one of the case studies, and I noticed the very high praise that we got from the previous speaker, so I wouldn't speak for very, very long. Let me just thank Child Rights Connect for what they have done, and I thank them both for the substantive contents of this report, but also the methodology they use. They sent back their findings to us, and I looked at them. We exchanged several emails, and they were very transparent. And whether we have a fact-finding accuracy, we are corrected. And so you have a report that is really fair, balanced, and accurate. And that should be a best practice which should be adopted by other NGOs. I mean, you work with government, you get the right information. So thank you. Thank you for this excellent report. Since a previous speaker has highlighted some of the things that we've done in Sierra Leone, I will not go into great detail into that, but I'll point out at least a few. We've adopted measures, legislative measures towards punitive ends to punish, for example, people who rape children or force them into labor and do a host of other things. But we've also introduced measures and policies and measures and budgetary support for free education of children and free compulsory education. This serves a number of purposes. Of course, it advances the cause of education, but it also makes sure that it undercuts those who will employ children in labor. Let me just show one example how we've done this. We've provided in some remote areas, poor rural communities. Sierra Leone is a very poor country. In poor rural communities, children are forced to go to farms in order to be able to eat. So if you go to school, you might not have food. So we've introduced school feeding. And that is an extremely expensive project, but it's been extremely effective in terms of keeping students in school. So the retention rates in school have increased by over 100-fold. And so students are actually completing. And this is a real protection for kids, our children, who are, as my colleagues said, the future and the present and the future. So let me highlight a number of other things that we've done in terms of international cooperation. We are one of 12 countries implementing the UNFPA, UNICEF Global Program to accelerate action to end child marriage. We've taken legislative action against that. It was recently in the news, and it is not a joke. And you know, child marriage and child rape can earn you, especially rape, can earn you life imprisonment, which is the highest form of punishment. We've abolished the capital punishment. Now life imprisonment is the highest form of punishment that we can impose. And we have done these things. We've endorsed the Safe Schools Declaration 2015. We consport, I believe, with Japan, a UN General Assembly resolution to declare November 18 as a World Day for the prevention of and healing from child sexual exploitation, abuse, and violence. So these are all initiatives that are taken at the top leadership level. It is the president himself who is very committed to this, and that's extremely important in our context. In areas, in states where institutions are not very strong, they are developing. The commitment of the top leadership drives policies and really drives reforms and change. So let me thank you. Read the report. There's a summary of the Sierra Leone case studies. They're really excellent. So please read it. Thank you.
Thank you, Excellency. And now we are trying to have online from Sweden, Mrs. Emma Tengwell.
Perfect. Can you hear me? Is the sound all right?
Yes.
Yes.
The floor is yours.
Thank you very much. Dear Excellencies, dear colleagues, thank you for this invitation. I will also keep it short since I know it's a lack of time. Since the 1979 ban on corporal punishment and other kind of degrading treatment of children in Sweden, there's been a long-term decline in the acceptance as well as the actual use of violence against children. But on the other hand, the number of children exposed to deadly violence has increased lately, much due to the lethal gun violence within the context of organized crimes in Sweden. The Swedish government is highly engaged in this issue, aiming to adopt legislative and administrative measures to combat all forms of violence against children. At the moment, the proportion of the 9th grade, which means 15-year-olds, more or less, pupils who reported that they had been victims of physical child abuse by one parent or step-parent, shows a decrease from 35% in 1995 to 13% in 2022. Among children with any kind of disability, this is twice as common. Since 2011, the share that reports exposure of psychological abuse by an adult is approximately unchanged. Despite this long-term positive trend of the decrease of corporal punishment of children, Sweden faces a numerous of challenges, just as at other countries. For instance, the increase in killings of minors within the context of adolescent gang crime. As mentioned earlier, the vulnerability among children with disabilities and other vulnerable groups, such as children in alternative care, is a high priority for the Swedish government. Certain attention is also pointed at children with parents in custody, residence, or access disputes, since they are at higher risk to be exposed to violence. The Swedish government recently suggested that risk of such vulnerability should outweigh the importance of a close relationship with both of the child's parents at the court's judgment of the best interest of the child, we'll say. So the ban of corporal punishment mainly targeted domestic violence.
Sorry, Emma, we're running out of time. Do you have just 30 seconds to wrap up?
Of course. So I will just end with the same way that this ban on corporal punishment due to changed attitudes were a milestone in 1979, we also consider this first global ministerial conference of ending violence against children as another very important step onwards with our international collaboration. So thank you very much.
Thank you, Emma, and sorry for the short timing. And I now give the floor to Mr. Trevor Sijombo from Zambia. Thank you.
Thank you very much, moderator. In the interest of time, I think we have run out of time. Allow me to just highlight some of the issues that we feel are making our work in protecting children successful. One, we have strong political will at the highest level of political leadership. The second one is supportive legislation, where in 2022, we enacted Children's Code Act, which provides comprehensive protection of children. Number three, we have transformative policies and programs, which are based on the INSPIRE model. And we feel this is working well to integrate our approach and coordinate social protection for children. We also have this National Prevention and Response Plan to end violence against children. Number four, we have structures that we feel are working well because they are right from the top up to the local level. This is taking a multi-sectoral approach to try and engage other stakeholders such as the traditional leaders, religious leaders, community leaders, private sector, civil society, and the children themselves. Number five, we have partnerships and advocacy, where the ministry responsible for child protection is working in partnership with civil society and other cooperating partners in raising awareness and training different segments of society. In terms of challenges, sorry, I'm trying to cut on the time. In terms of challenges, we have a few challenges that we have been encountered in the process. One is the constraint of resources, which is affecting the provision of supportive facilities. We also have traditions and norms, cultural norms, which tend to delay the response from interventions. We have also stigma and reporting barriers. Number four, we have data and statistics. I think this is an area where we still need to improve on. In conclusion, the Zambian government, in partnership with international organizations and civil society, is committed to safeguarding children from abuse, neglect, exploitation, and violence. I thank you.
Thank you very much. And I very quickly give the floor now to Sabine Rakoto Malalo. Sorry, I won't introduce you so much so you can speak.
I'm Sabine from the World Health Organization, and I'm working with Colombia, Sweden, SRSG's office, UNICEF, and WHO to organize the ministerial conference. Point one, if you haven't registered at ministerial level to the conference, please do so this week. We have 67 ministers that have already registered, the biggest meeting ever, and huge thanks to Colombia for pushing this as well. So we have 115 countries and 67 ministers. If you haven't registered, please do so. Exactly these 4 points is what Bogota is about. First of all, we want new pledges, and we want agreement on an outcome document. Secondly, we're creating a space for children, young people, and survivors to speak about violence against children. Thirdly, we're sharing solutions. What are we learning? And fourthly, we're moving on the pathfinding CON 2.0. So 40 countries that are leading the way on ending violence against children. A huge thanks for Child Connect for organizing this and publishing it.
Thank you. We're getting towards the end of our program. Just one word from Brikena, and also after there are a couple, 6 youth who are here if you want to connect with them outside to speak, because we didn't have the voices of children, unfortunately. Yes, Brikena, exactly.
I want to say I choose hope. In the middle of this situation, I choose hope because ending violence against children, it is achievable. If the pledges of EVAC Ministerial Conference and Pathfinding 2.0 are concrete, properly budgeted, and inspired by local stakeholders, driven by accountability and partnership. Let me close with a letter from children addressed to government. They urging us not to wait 5 more minutes. Why? Because every 5 minutes a child dies as a result of violence. So my ending question for you is, will you push for this conference to be an answer to the children's call for hope? Thank you.
Thank you very much, and sorry for the rushed end.